Former Ambassador Hill, it's great to have you on. And the place I want to start with you right now is your assessment of what's happening on the ground in Iran as lawmakers look to be briefed further here over the coming days stateside, and allies, including our European counterparts, are also perhaps begrudgingly finding themselves moving towards this conflict.
Well, first of all, there are a lot of moving parts here. I think the Europeans are trying to kind of calm things down and say that, look, we don't want to rush to judgment about our friends and partners. But there's obviously a great deal of concern. In the U.S., there's a real consensus that if you line up the world's bad guys, you would find the Ayatollahs at the top of the list. So there's no love lost. There's no sense that it was better to have Iran under these Ayatollahs. That said, if you look at President Trump's, approval ratings, there's a great deal of concern as to whether he and his team would be up to a crisis like this. He tends to poll rather poorly on foreign policy matters, and increasingly he's been polling poorly on issues like the economy. So we have to see what the Congress will want to do this week. I know there's a great deal of concern that the president has not laid out a case for what he's trying to do. His verbal skills are not Churchillian, if I could say that. They are, he kind of says a couple of things, and then you think, oh, you could take that to the bank, but you really don't know. And I think that comment about the 4-week war is also something is just a seat-of-the-pants comment. So there's a real communications problem from our administration. And meanwhile, we don't really know what the Iranians plan to do and who will prevail. But it's kind of unlikely that you're going to see a clear winner in Iran in the next 4 weeks. And certainly, for all the talk about the people who are the incredibly unpopular Ayatollah regime, there doesn't seem to be yet any sign of anything else coming to the fore.
That was my next question for you, and that was change in the regime or regime change here. I mean, is this a situation where we could see continued Islamic theocracy? Are you going to see an established monarchy? Are you going to see something else, the possibility of civil war?
Yeah.
What would you be watching for to understand where this goes?
Well, I'd be watching to see whether the current regime is able to reconstitute itself, and whether you start seeing some coherent statements coming out of the current regime, which would suggest that they do have succession plans, et cetera. Again, I think we're really in uncharted waters. We really don't know how the regime will handle this. We do know that they seem to have had a plan to go after the Gulf states, and I think that plan is rather fraught, and the Saudis have suggested that they too will join in the attack against Iran. So we have the Iranians, I think, are kind of on their back feet and don't really know where they're going to go with this. But I think what is most worrisome is I'm not sure whether Washington has a clear idea of what it wants to do. And to say, well, it's up to you, Iranian people, is a statement that really we've heard it before in the past, and it's often ended in tragedy.
Misstep or an expected move by Iran to start striking out at its neighbors in the region here?
I can understand in a kind of vague sense what the strategy is. The strategy, of course, is to have the neighbors try to influence the U.S. and others, saying, hey, this is not in our interest. But I think it's important to understand that the U.S. went into this in a close cooperation with Israel, and I'm not sure it was so close with the GCC countries. So I think it's kind of it's unclear whether the Iranians think they have something going by attacking them. My sense is it's a misstep, and they're going to be solidifying the coalition against them.
On the one hand, President Trump said, Iran, you have 10 days. On the other hand, we were engaged in peace talks with the expectation that more would continue in this upcoming week. That seems to be sidelined now. Meantime, ongoing talks with Russia and Ukraine and preparations ahead of a meeting with President Xi in China in a couple of weeks here, too. What does this do to all of these different dynamics and relationships with other geopolitical rivals on the world stage?
I mean, you've put your finger on it. This is a full plate, and we have an administration that really has trouble with any single crisis, and they are really overloading the circuits. Certainly, China is watching the situation very closely with grave concern, and I think President Trump had hoped that when he meets with Xi Jinping, he could pull a rabbit out of a hat. But I think another problem is we don't seem to have good communications anywhere. We have 100 vacant ambassadorships. We're not really talking to these people. And so someone's going to be having to stuff that rabbit down the hat. And I don't see any sign that we've got that going. So I think there are a lot of problems in terms of great power relations. I think the Russians obviously have their hands full in Ukraine. I don't see any further engagement by Russia on this. But China, we have to see how they look at it. And I think there's a grave concern among many countries that the U.S. simply has bitten off more than it can chew.